What's up, everybody? Thursday night football. Eagles and Texans, two teams at the opposite end of the NFL spectrum. We're going to break it down for you anyway. I'm the Luch here with my guy, TJ Zwarych, and we got the interruption count and the mute count on deck. I know Steve's been keeping track loosely behind the scenes, and we'll get this bad boy going soon enough. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I am doing pretty well this evening. Had a really fun interview earlier today, and got a lot of RG shows and another live show tonight. So I'm busy, but it's busy with fun things. So that's kind of keeping me upbeat. How you doing, Luch?
I'm doing busy stuff as always between scores and odds, RotoGrinders, NBA season keeping me on my toes. Doing some morning grind stuff. Hey, we'll be on the morning grind tomorrow. So if you guys tuning in the hoops, check out what we have to say about tomorrow's slate. I guess we were kind of fortunate that it was only a two-gamer today, TJ. But of course, there was a 7:01 p.m. Eastern Bones Highland scratch. I don't know if you played tonight, but still some drama.
I was planning on it, that I never ended up getting to it because my interview was right leading up to when crunch time was, so I swapped this show and that show with cards, and so I didn't get to build any NBA lineups today. But that's the kind of thing I enjoy on a 2-game slate, because I mean, he was in the second game anyway, so there were still ways to adjust, and so yeah, that's kind of fun on a 2-game slate.
It's something for sure. Hey, you got questions? Drop them in the chat. We got an eye on the YouTube chat and the Discord. What's up, Eric? What's up, Tammy? What's up, Buzz? Stan? Got some people rolling in. We appreciate you guys. All right. Let's just dive into it, I suppose. We're gonna bring you right up until lock around 8:15 or so. All right. What's your view of this game? Are we going to get a blowout? Are the Eagles going to take their foot off the gas at all? Is Houston going to surprise anybody? What are you thinking here, TJ?
I don't think from a game script standpoint we're going to get too many surprises. I think the Eagles are going to win this one pretty handily. I think it'll go basically how we expect. And I think my way of looking to get different today will be based on finding some of these super cheap receivers that nobody else is where not very many people else is playing, and look to make my pivots there a little bit. I'm not going to try and do anything crazy like fade Jalen Hurts. Even if I had 150 lineups today, I only have 3, but if I had 150, I'd have Jalen Hurts in every single one of them today, in either the MVP/captain or the flex position. I wouldn't have a single one without him. And so I think there are some interesting ways we can build our lineups today, especially on DraftKings. But I think we can go through the builds on both sites and find some strong optimal lineups, and also some ways to get different.
2 plugs I want to drop in before we dive into that. If you don't know scores and odds, definitely check it out. Parlay IQ is still free. You're going to bet on same game parlays much differently. They're going to be much more correlated, and you're definitely going to bump up your ROI. Definitely check out Parlay IQ on scoresandodds.com, which is free. And hey, what about Stat Hero? If you haven't heard of Stat Hero, it's a unique fantasy sports platform where you compete against the house. It's not a peer-to-peer game, but you can play head-to-head style, or you can do a pick'em style contest, and there's tons of great prizes up for grabs. We got a promo code over there for Stat Hero. It's Grinders in all caps for a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Oh, look, there's my pick. Thanks, Steve. What are your thoughts about this one, TJ? I like both running backs. If you're getting 4 points as well on top of it, now I'm a little worried. This is going to go hand in hand with some of our game script conversation here, but I think Pierce has to be heavily involved regardless. And I think Miles Sanders can effectively run the football. So that was my pick. I'm taking both running backs +4 over Davis Mills and Dallas Goedert. What would you say to that?
I'm with you. I'm on that exact same side, which is why I didn't even add anything else in the chat. I was just on the same page as you there. Not only do we get the +4, not only do we get both running backs we're expecting to be heavily involved, but I don't really agree with the projection of having Dallas Goedert projected 2 points higher than Miles Sanders anyways. If we go over to the RG projections or the Blitz projections, that's not exactly the case, as we have Miles Sanders projected for more than Dallas Goedert. So I like that side quite a bit as well.
Cool. We agree, which isn't always the case. So if you're over there on Stat Hero, go check that out and get your 50% deposit bonus for sure. All right. So you are saying Jalen Hurts everywhere. That's what you're saying. You're screaming it from the mountaintops here. I think I agree for the most part on FanDuel when we're talking about raw points. I might have a few lineups without him, but he's an animal. He's just absurd. Like what a leap he's taken. So on DraftKings, if you're playing optimally, is he your captain of choice for optimal type builds?
Yes, absolutely. He's going to be on both sites for me, even on DraftKings, where you can save some salary by playing somebody else there, but I don't think we need to today. We're going to have some cheapies that we'll be able to use to save salary. So it's Jalen Hurts in the captain position for me from an optimal perspective. And even from a like trying to differentiate in tournaments, like I would have some specific builds where I'm trying to build a game script where he's not in the captain, but most of the ways I view this, I can't imagine him not being in the tournament winning lineup, even in the utility position at some point. So for me, it's going to be Jalen Hurts everywhere, and he's my favorite captain as well.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because there is some decent value that opened up, and I have the flex numbers opened up here on Lineup HQ. I have it sorted by ownership. This is flex, but I'm going to flip to salary here. And we had a bit of a unique situation here. Brandon Cooks mixed back-to-back practices, and which includes a walkthrough for a Thursday night game. And I took a little bit of risk last night. I threw in a couple same-game parlays with Chris Moore and Dorsett. We're both at 19.5 on DraftKings or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I lose a little bit of coin if Cooks decides to play, but I was hoping he wouldn't. And I feel pretty good about that now. So I got some low lines for Chris Moore and for Philip Dorsett, who, listen, aren't fantastic at football at the NFL level, but they're going to play 75+% of the snaps tonight, probably in a negative game script. So I know some questions in the chat are definitely debating between these Texans receivers, and a lot of variance today, a lot of volatility and a lot of unknown. So, we'll see our collective thoughts there, and maybe the chat will get some chatter going on as well. What's up to Big Hurt in the chat? Yeah, are you surprised Brandon Cooks is sitting this one out? Just before we dive into this slate, what do you think is going to happen with him? Anything?
I'm not surprised he sat out. I don't know. Like, I think continuing to sit out could be a possibility. I think it's more likely that he just plays after this one. To me, I kind of just chalk it up to he was expecting to get traded. He wanted to be traded. He probably didn't practice or game plan this week because he was expecting that trade to come. And then when it didn't happen, well, you're just sitting there then, oh, wow, I play on a Thursday, not a Sunday, and I am not ready for this game at all. My body's not prepped. My mind's not prepped. And so I'm just not going to play this one. This is a team that's not exactly expecting to win anything. They're probably all right with losing games. So I think that makes sense as to why he's not playing. And I'm not very worried about it long term. I think if this was a Sunday game, he'd be playing, and I think if it was next week, he'll be back, kind of thing. And there are the questions in chat popping out, like, is it Dorsett? Is it Moore? What if I said on DraftKings it's neither?
Do you like Johnson? Or are you looking at one of the plethora of tight ends that Houston has here? What are you thinking?
So from an optimal perspective on DraftKings, I think we start with Jalen Hurts in the captain position. You insert AJ Brown and Miles Sanders next. You take your choice of Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert, and you look to build from there. Like I'm okay with leaving next to no salary and looking at these guys on the bottom at like Tyrone Johnson. Just based on the way that we're projecting Tyrone Johnson, to me, he feels like the next easy piece for the optimal lineup. And then when you do that, like you still have enough to if Goddard's your next option, you have a plethora of options as to who you can use to fill out your optimal lineup from here, because you're left with 3,900, and that kind of gives you the options for a kicker, a defense, another pass catcher from Philly like Zach Pascal or Kez Watkins. You can even do one of the Houston tight ends like Brevin Jordan, which would probably be the optimal way of going about it, which we won't plug in just for the sake of not filling out an entire lineup. But I think that's how I'd probably look at things optimally on DraftKings today. I'm expecting Philly to blow them out, so I want all their top players in my optimal lineup.
Yeah, I mean, he's $200, so you can do a lot with the rest of your lineup, and he should play. Like, if you look at that depth chart, there's no Nico Collins tonight either. He's out. He's not holding out. He's not sitting out. He's hurt. He's out, and no Brandon Cooks. You have Dorsett. You have Moore. You have Johnson. And you have Jalen Camp, who, I mean, God, I can't even talk you out of playing a guy like that because I haven't been following the Texans under a microscope this season. But I think Johnson is the better play and should get a little more burn from what I've read today.
Brevin Jordan and Jordan Akins, I think, both make for fantastic salary savers optimally or just in large field tournaments as well. Neither of them are coming in over 20%. And so I love both of those plays. And I think the answer to how do you differentiate in tournaments, it's Jalen Camp. This is a guy that impressed in preseason. He's been on the practice squad all year. He got promoted for this one. I don't have that much to say about him other than he did well in some preseason action, and Texans Twitter seems to like him. But coming in at sub 5% ownership, they only have 4 receivers on the roster, and he's $200. Like, especially if this turns into a blowout, this is a guy that, what if he just plays all the snaps in the second half because they want to take a look at him?
He could. I agree. You could get different that way, or you could do what I'm doing, and I might play some Miles Sanders at captain at an MVP, which I think has some paths to really get some leverage here. Listen, I know the volume is an issue sometimes with Miles Sanders, but man, he looks good. He's getting a decent clip of opportunities. Houston cannot stop a nosebleed, but they're also not good at the run. Logically speaking, I would think, game script wise, Philly should be playing with a lead in the second half of this game. And I would love, Miles Sanders to get a couple extra opportunities here. Am I saying fade Jalen Hurts with a Miles Sanders captain type team? No. Is it an outcome that is optimal? Yes, but it's not likely. So I think maybe we had one Miles Sanders super ceiling game this year. One. I think was it the Jacksonville game? Maybe we get another. I
think a Miles Sanders captain game is totally viable. There's nothing wrong with that as well at all. My kind of mindset is if I'm playing Hurts there in my Hurts lineups, I just want to plug and play different variations of all these different cheapies, the tight ends, the Camps, the Johnsons, mix in some Kez Watkins and Zach Pascal, try and get different there. That's how I want to play my Jalen Hurts lineups. I think we can get different enough by doing it that way at some of these very low ownership guys. In any lineup that doesn't have Hurts and captain, I want to, and this is applicable for FanDuel and DraftKings, I want to specifically think out my build, because the Hurts captain ones, you don't really need to. It's he has a great game and it's Houston playing from behind. You get a cheap receiver in there. But these other ones, you really have to think it through. So in a Miles Sanders MVP type lineup, if I'm not having Hurts in there, which I would, but if I'm not, I wouldn't only have Miles Sanders in there, but I'd make sure I have Jake Elliott. I'd make sure I have the Philadelphia defense. I'd make sure I have Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell in there as well. Like, I'd go double running backs here. I have no interest in playing Pierce and Burkhead in the same lineup, but to me, something like Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, you mix and match some of those guys together, and I think that's very interesting just on the basis that all the touchdowns are on the ground. It's a blowout, so Gainwell and Scott get more touches in the second half of the game. I think that's kind of the way that you want to go about it.
Yeah, and a lot of buzz about tight ends in the chat. And we're talking about cheap pieces here. It's tough to really guess how Houston is gonna divvy up their tight end distribution here. Looking at week 7, Brevin Jordan played 46% of the snaps. OJ Howard played 45, and Jordan Akins played 40. Last week, Brevin Jordan played 56% of the snaps. OJ Howard 50%, and Akins 26. So, it seems like Akins has been popping on the stat sheet more, but I don't know if that's going to be the case moving forward. Brevin Jordan was pretty good in the second half last year when he had some opportunities. I don't mind him in a negative game script here, and it just always feels like OJ Howard breaks one of these stupid slates, like stupid OJ Howard 2-touchdown night or something like that. If Houston even scores twice, I don't know. But there is so much, like, embrace the chaos and the randomness tonight with all these practice squadish type journeyman receivers and a bunch of tight ends where there's no solidified alpha on the roster here. The only thing we know for sure about Houston is that Dameon Pierce should be relied on heavily in this game. Now, are you afraid that he gets game scripted out? Maybe a little, but he ran 21 routes last week. He is as good of a pass catcher as probably any of these receivers, get the ball in the open field a little bit here. But I do feel like, they will be stubborn and try to stick to their game script a little bit, even if they get down 2 scores, because Pierce is the best player they have on offense and is kind of unquestioned, especially without Brandon Cooks right now here. So you need to talk to me about Dameon Pierce a little bit here, TJ. What are your thoughts?
We'll talk about Pearson at the same time. I think we switch over the screen share over to FanDuel so we can start looking at some differences over there. I like in theory, I like Pierce today. He's just not making my specific builds because I do think it's a Philly onslaught. Now, I still think he's going to be involved. I just don't know how well they're going to be able to move the ball, which is why I lean to more so to playing if I just play 1 or 2 of these Philly guys and have it be one of the cheap ones. And then my favorite way of differentiating has it being one of the lower owned tight ends or Jalen Camp in there, something like that. For me personally, like we talk about all these practice squad type players we're going to be considering and to embrace the randomness. I want to do that everywhere except for Jalen Hurts, because to me, like this is a guy that he's projected for over 10 points more than any other player on the slate. That's a huge margin, and this is probably going to be the NFC MVP. So why would I mess around playing one of these practice squad guys in that spot to try and get too different in the MVP? I'm just going to play Hurts. I'm not going to try and get too different. And if I'm paying up for him and I want to play these Philly guys, for me, it just makes it tough to get to Dameon Pierce. But I can't tell you not to, because he's going to be involved if they're up, if they're down, as long as it's not a mega blowout. This is a good young running back, one of the bright spots of this team this year. But for me, I would rather get to more Philly players than get to Dameon Pierce today.
In other news, Kyrie Irving suspended for 5 games. I couldn't read my push notification fast enough, but what an implosion we have. The Brooklyn Nets implosion just keeps the gift that keeps giving. Anyway, that's for the morning grind. But I think you make a good point, especially when it comes to raw points on FanDuel. That's such a massive projected ownership under MVP here on FanDuel. But, you make a good case. In terms of median projections, even 10 points is a pretty huge gap. So I totally understand what you're saying here. And just the fact that he's a dual threat quarterback against this defense, who I don't know if you watched Derrick Henry highlights last week, but they look pretty miserable trying to tackle Derrick Henry. Most people do, but that's just kind of why I lean, having a couple Miles Sanders dart throws here. There's a chance that the Eagles just absolutely annihilate Houston. Definitely. I thought all their prop lines, except Miles Sanders, looked a little bit low. And usually that kind of gets me thinking a little bit here. Maybe they're concerned that it is going to be a blowout and they take their foot off the gas or something like that. That's fine. But it definitely has the wheels spinning in my head a little bit. And maybe warrants a little bit more Miles Sanders action. I know Carolina guy, also Big Hurt, depending on what chat he's in. What's up, Carolina guy? Is going to ask about a contrarian MVP. And I guess we could kind of tie in some questions with our conversations here, because I'm sure we'll get more in. So if it's not,
I'll tie some of these in here, but we got 100 people watching and only 14 likes. So we got to get at least 25 likes before we get to questions anyways, because we need your help, guys. More likes means more sponsors. More sponsors means we get to give away more free stuff to you. So it's a win-win. It helps us out a lot. Let's slide your finger over there, hit the like button. And in terms of contrarian MVPs here on FanDuel, I think there's only certain people I'm looking for, and for a specific reason. If I'm not playing Hurts, yes, Dameon Pierce could just go off and be the reason why Houston is in this game. But at the second highest ownership, I don't really think I want to do that. AJ Brown could have another massive game as last week, but at the third highest ownership, I don't think I want to do that. Sanders stealing all the touchdowns without it being Hurts and making Hurts unoptimal, that seems more likely than a Pierce or a Brown MVP to me. And so in that case, I'm good with the Miles Sanders, even at above 10% ownership in that position, but build your lineup to correlate with it. If you're playing Miles Sanders there, it makes sense to me to maybe even swing in another running back that it's going to be a big blowout and somebody else will get involved there. A receiver like Watkins, Pascal, or Devontae Smith that might catch a 50-yard long touchdown, but maybe not a whole lot else. Something like that, and a defense in there with your Miles Sanders lineup. For me, my very contrarian things that I'd want to do today would be either Eagles defense MVP, Jake Elliott MVP. Maybe Houston just plays very slow and Hurts doesn't have the ball for that long. They stop him in the red zone, and those are the only points scored this game. And then the other player I'd want to look to would be Devontae Smith, just because he could have the same type of game that AJ Brown had last week. We've seen that before, and he's at 3% percentage owned as opposed to AJ Brown's 13. So that's kind of the way I'd want to get contrarian at the captain position. And then on FanDuel at the flex position, where it's different than DraftKings for me, is I prioritize Chris Moore a lot more. Because he's 6.5 on FanDuel, and that price savings is a lot more significant on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings for him. So I prioritize him above Philip Dorsett. I don't think Dorsett is a bad play either, just because he's coming in at half the ownership as Chris Moore. But I think on FanDuel, again, one of my favorite ways to get different is Tyrone Johnson is a great play optimally. He's still a strong play for tournaments, coming in at sub 15% ownership. But Jalen Camp coming in at sub 3% is my favorite way to get difference in tournaments today. And I just don't mind taking shots on guys like Kez Watkins, Jordan Akins, Brevin Jordan, Kenneth Gainwell, all of those guys I'm good with mixing in my Jalen Hurts type lineups. I won't probably play any kickers or defenses in my Jalen Hurts lineups. I will save those for running back captains, or even just putting those guys in the MVP and getting funky with that. So for me, it's same strategy as DraftKings. Prioritize Jalen Hurts, and when he's there in the MVP, I want to mix and match the different cheap pass catchers based on how highly owned the rest of my lineup is. And then in my lineups that I'm not playing Hurts at the MVP, I want to build a specific game script that will match that team.
Yep. Pretty solid analysis. See, TJ will give the people what he wants. He just wants those likes first, and we got him. So we appreciate you guys. Let's see here. Let's go to the top. Chris Moore or Philip Dorsett? I'm imagining this is straight up. Do you have a lean for me here, TJ?
I would go with Chris Moore is my priority on DraftKings, where he's a little bit more expensive and coming in high, but like not by a lot. I like him better just because I think he's got higher upside. And then on FanDuel, that savings is just too big of a difference between 9K and 6.5K to pass up.
Yeah, you can do so much more with more than Dorsett on FanDuel. I'm with you there. A Quez Watkins captain from our guy, Eric. I don't think I'm crazy enough to do it, but I like him in the flex on both sites. I mean, if we're looking for a defense that will have some miscommunication and some broken plays, it could be that Houston secondary for sure. So I think Watkins, you mentioned him quite a bit. I think he is a high upside, large field tournament play as well. Let's see. Who to play from Houston? They're looking rough. That is true. Pierce's price makes it tough. I did take some of his player props though, as some overs there, but I do think this is going to be a very Philly-oriented game script. You can run the ball on the Eagles though. They're top 10 in the I think most friendliest rushing success rate. So you can have some success. It's just if they don't get the ball first and Philly marches down the field and scores, and then maybe Davis Mills has an oopsie and they score again, then we're in trouble if we're investing in Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, and because of how ugly it is today, it really just makes me feel like, why not embrace the chaos? Why not embrace the ugliness? Like, why eat chalk in my big tournament, like in my large field tournament lineups, and why not just play these guys like Kez Watkins, Jalen Camp, Zach Pascal, people that nobody is really getting to? Why don't just I prioritize those guys a little bit more? Like if I was playing 150 lineups today, I'd probably be looking at 25% Camp, 30% Johnson, like just trying to double the field on all of those guys outside of Camp, and just literally 10, 20 extra field on him, just because if somebody's coming in that low owned on a single game slate and we have literally no idea how the opportunity is going to shake out. We have our projections, but like we don't know if this game gets ugly. We don't know who Houston's coaching staff is going to want to take a look at. And this game is probably going to get ugly. That's what the odds say. That's what the spread says. So might as well just go for it. That's kind of how I feel.
All right, we got 8-12, guys. Start wrapping it up. Let's answer Dan's question in the chat. Pascal or Watkins for DK? Single entry. I'm on team Watkins. I just think he's more involved, and Hurts looks for him more down the field. I think he's the high upside guy you want in your lineup. He's not going to garner a lot of targets, but neither of them are, so I want the big play guy in Quez Watkins.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And I'm laughing at Cloud's comment. Camp and Johnson, same lineup, large field GPP. God help me. So,
Hell yeah.
Yep. I'm with it. 8-12, guys. If you got anything else, drop them in the chat here, and we'll try to get a quick lightning round for you. Yeah, I mean, you made some good points about if you're not investing in Jalen Hurts and taking points everywhere else. I love playing Jake Elliott in my non Jalen Hurts lineups. You made a point about stalling out in the red zone. I mean, just that's what it's going to have to be, right? The points are going to have to come from somewhere else that's not correlated to Jalen Hurts as much. So it's either the kicker or the running backs or the defense. So, earlier in the year, they would throw Boston Scott in there a little more inside the 5, inside the 10. It was a little frustrating, but I feel like maybe they shied away from that the last couple of weeks. DK3 Max from Derek. What's up, Derek? Scott or Watkins with a Sanders captain? So Sanders captain team, would you rather have Boston Scott, which is fine, I think, or Quez Watkins? That's a tough one.
If Jalen Hurts is in the lineup, Quez Watkins. If Jalen Hurts is not in the lineup, Boston Scott.
Makes total sense. Hopefully you get that before lock, Derek. We appreciate you. I guess that's about it. So let me ask you this. What's the margin of victory going to be if you're saying it's an Eagles game? How much do they win by? Do they cover 13.5, which is what it is on at least some books, I think.
Yep, I think they cover it. And looking at the expert survey that I put out there today, I think I said the final score would be 42-17.
Oof. Could be. I mean, the Eagles are just rolling and they're flexing through their competition right now. So it's been a long day. We appreciate all you guys. We appreciate you guys hitting that like button and joining us. We are going to get on out of here and watch some football. TJ and I got to prep for the morning grind. So definitely check us out tomorrow morning. But you got a question from Donnie in the chat, on the YouTube chat, TJ. Quick, if you want to take a moment, go for it.
I have not seen any of the peripheral, but I'll ask some of my writers, because I know we've had some people who've seen it, and then hit me back next show, and I'll have an answer for you as to what they think. Maybe we can even get an article up on agentsoffandom.com. 45 minutes from now, I'm doing a live show talking about Andor, talking about all the crazy, huge Marvel news that's happened this week. We've had a bunch of castings and stuff like that. And then, right after that, I'll be joining you to record the morning grind for NBA for tomorrow. And then we'll also, I'm going to be on 2 FanDuel Friday shows with Dre tomorrow. So make sure you check that out as well for FanDuel Friday for NBA. We're doing something a little different because obviously in the morning, the slate's not quite the same as it is at night. And we don't want to be doing the same rehashing the morning grind over and over again. And so it's more of a overarching strategy, talking a lot of lineup building, game theory, and then as well, we're going to be active in the chat on the FanDuel Friday page on the RotoGrinders as well throughout the day. So if you have questions and comments, there's news that break and you want to know how we're handling it, we're going to be answering that all throughout the day up until lock as well. So make sure you're checking that out.
Yes, let's start the weekend off the right way. Hopefully we make some money. Hopefully this helped. We'll bring you some NBA stuff tomorrow and many different forms of content between the two of us here and the rest of our RotoGrinders team. Just a reminder, check out scoresandodds.com for a ton of great bets from our experts, and Parlay IQ is still free. Check out Parlay IQ. So for my guy here, TJ, and producer Steve, we appreciate you. I'm the Luch. Have a good night and good luck, everybody.